Chapter 50. We turned a sharp right just before Marina Drive and rolled onto a smooth driveway nestled within a set of sturdy wooden gates. This place looks like a wonderland, I muttered, glancing at the dark oak trees bending over the drive. We quietly entered a luxurious estate, basking on ocean cliffs with the glint of the full moon shimmering over the ocean. Yes, my wonderland, Marcus smiled. Getting out of the car, I became immediately immersed within a beautiful course of nightlife, accompanied by the gentle lapping of waves down below. Marcos was already walking up the steps to the front door. "Where are we?" I asked, following behind him. "Another home," Marcos answered, fumbling with the keys, "that April doesn't know about." I snickered. I wasn't even surprised. As I wiped my running mascara, Marcos held out his hand and helped me up the stairs. Walking through the entrance, I was greeted into a magnificent home, cloaked in rich wood paneling along the ceilings and adorned with precious-looking furnishings spread out over large Persian rugs. "Marcus Almeida is full of secrets," I murmured, gazing through the expansive floor-length windows, strolling through the circular living room, and making my way into the kitchen. I noticed trays of sushi on the kitchen counter. Suddenly, I could feel his hot breath coming over the back of my neck, cavorting down my right ear. "Marcos Almeida is full of secrets," he whispered, pressing his groin up against my back and in between my thighs. Gasped, arching my head back onto his shoulder, feeling myself swiftly fall into his fantasy. Oh God, here we go. My insides roused excitedly, feeling his warm, heavy breath run down the side of my neck as his fingers slid through my curls, bringing my head back to meet his aching lips. Marcos wants me bad. He watched me with those menacing dark eyes, that sexed breath caressing along my desperate lips, poised, controlled, watching and watching, as always. Firmly gripping the front of my neck with his left hand, Marcos wiped that red lipstick from my mouth with the palm of his right, smearing it up his wrist and against his Hublot watch, all the while still penetrating me with those heavy, evocative eyes. And just before I felt myself collapse onto the kitchen floor, he pressed his despairing lips onto mine, thrusting that delicious tongue deep into my mouth. My eyes rolled into the back of my head as we passionately thrashed through our inflamed world of lustful oblivion. By the way that his tongue was commanding my mouth, I knew Marcus was going to have his way with me tonight. That was a given. He kept a steadfast grip of my jaw within his strong hands and kissed me deeply, passionately, enveloping my soul into an unforgiving wrath once more, leading me into that other world he warned me about. Spinning me around to face him, he lifted me onto the marble counter, hitching up my delicate dress and exposing my lean, tanned thighs. He pushed his bulging groin against my lace panties that were now glistening with my licentious wetness. I wrapped my trembling thighs around his pelvis tightly, feeling him rub himself in between my warm, sacred yearning. My frantic fingers dug into the nape of his neck as my body prepared itself for its eventual obliteration. And my body wanted it badly. Like a wild lion flexing his authority, Marcus ripped my pretty chiffon dress clean off my shoulders. I listened to the fabric tearing down my back, quickly revealing my heavy breasts nestled amongst that stunning emerald and diamond necklace. Marcus, I cried quietly, feeling his hands run over the length of my back. Relenting, he thrust his tongue back into my mouth, while the beast within him ripped open his tailored black shirt, revealing that outrageously taut olive body. Do you love me? He whispered in my ear, cradling my neck in his hands. I love you, I gasped. I've loved you since I first saw you. I know, he whispered into my lips, expertly undoing his black trousers with one hand. I saw it in your eyes. His trousers quickly fell to his ankles, giving me an eyeful of that raging rod of angry flesh, with its bulging veins and swollen head. I knew it had been waiting to destroy me, and I shuddered at the sight of seeing it again. Wrapping my legs around him, Marcus carried me into the master suite that was warmed by a crackling fire. He laid me across the king-size bed, pulling my sorry dress over my head and flinging it onto the velvet pincushion sofa. Glancing at me with those dark eyes, he ran his eager hands between my breasts and quickly removed my delicate panties. I felt my eyes rolling back again, anticipating his next move. And through my frenzied panting, I watched Marcus shove my aching pelvis into his mouth, kissing my dripping lips, the wanton seductress, and feeling as his insatiable tongue tasted my most deepest, darkest secrets. As my body rocked within Epicurean pleasure, I remembered his text. My tongue is going to take you to other worlds when I see you. I screamed out helplessly, Marcus watching me writhing, arching in uncontrollable ways. My frantic reaction spurring him on, probing me deeper with his long, lapping tongue. He licked two of his fingers and thrust them into my smoldering passage of desire, massaging my slipping walls tenderly. Eventually, he pulled them out and wiped them across my gasping mouth. Dying, I was sure of it. Like the keeper of the ultimate Elysium, Marcus dragged my thighs closer to his mouth, and I knew he was about to take me into those other worlds again. I cried out to the heavens with agonized delight, begging to stay in those other worlds forever as he racked the deepest parts of my soul, locking onto me as my body spasmed out of control, doing things of an utterly impossible, unspeakable nature. Showing me no quarter, he thrust that massive rod of flesh into my tight, trembling walls, and we began that slow, sensuous dance of sexual decadence. He lay his heavy body onto mine, pinning my arms out wide across the bed, and pounded me with purposefully slow, circular motions, not once removing those dark, redolent eyes from my face. He gained momentum, becoming faster and faster, until I found myself on the brink of death once more, slipping from life. But I wasn't on my own this time. Marcus's body convulsed wildly and fell over the imminent abyss with me, exploding his sacred seed deep within the reaches of my ambrosia, plunging endlessly into those murky realms that only but a few, I dare say, have ever been privy to. Absolutely and unequivocally shattered. Chapter 51. I like the raw ones best. Mild, sitting on the kitchen island. Salmon and avocado, tuna, all that good stuff. Marcus popped a piece of sushi into my mouth, standing in between my parted thighs, with his curious hands getting lost amongst my loosened robe. With all that incredible toe-curling sex, we had worked up one hell of an appetite. We were starving. And what about you? I wondered, holding some salmon nigiri to his mouth. He ate it in one bite. Anything, he smirked, chomping away, leaning his topless torso into me. So you're easy to please. His glassy dark eyes sparkled. When it's the one I like. I quietly chuckled, pulling him by his black sweats closer to me. Are you finished in LA now? For now, he murmured, pushing my hair over my shoulders, hair that now resembled a bird's nest. Until the next time. Are you staying home when April goes away Monday? I am, he nodded enthusiastically. Told the office I'm working from home. A slightly foreign concept to me and to them. Good, I sighed with relief. Perhaps I can finally cook that dinner for you. Perhaps you can, he smiled suggestively, putting another sushi roll into my mouth, sealing it with a kiss. Or two, or three. I glanced around the grandeur of the house. So, this house, I pondered. Do you come here much? Not particularly, Marcus said, raising a glass of water to his lips. I use it for business guests traveling to meet with me. Things of that nature. Oh, I see, I muttered, admiring the plaster rosettes on the ceiling. Well, you're very generous. Why do things half-heartedly? He said quickly, gazing into my face. It's a waste. Time is so short here. Life and death walk hand in hand, constantly giving away to the other. Well, many people become complacent, I surmised, throwing my arms over his brawny shoulders. Many, he pointed out. But my past has stopped me from ever becoming complacent. I've lived both ends of the rope. I rubbed his tired face and hugged him tightly. Everybody was asking about you tonight, I murmured, my face nuzzled into his neck. Everybody's always asking about me. I pulled away. You're a hot commodity, according to Dale Franks. Marcus threw his head back. A hot commodity, he chuckled, rubbing his chin. I kinda like that. I think you have many admirers, I stroked his face. You could have anyone. He glanced down at me soberly, running his fingers over my sparkling neck. I've never wanted anyone, he spoke quietly. I know what I like when I see it. And you knew I loved you right from the start. I traced my fingers over his tan pectoral muscles. He nodded, squeezing me closer. I knew you loved me. He inhaled deeply. You confirmed it that night you drove me home from the airport, at the dinner table. Was I that easy to read? I snickered. I have a talent, remember? He smiled, gently unclasping the diamonds from around my neck. Why do you think I was gone for 3 weeks afterwards? I glared at him. Why did you leave for 3 weeks? I was absolutely devastated. Because you and your pretty little self came along and changed everything, he answered quietly, removing my earrings carefully. You turned my world upside down. You showed me everything that was missing from my life. I needed space to think, to evaluate. So I rocked your world, I muttered, holding his face in my hands. Marcus shook his head, smiling, putting his hands around my ribcage. Bonet, you rock my world. You know, when I first saw you in the kitchen with Dave that night, I thought I was going to pass out. I remember thinking to myself, this cannot be Marcus Almeida. I have that effect on people, he joked, massaging his thumbs in between my ribs. You really do, I giggled, kissing his soft lips. Bonnet de Haro, he sighed, hearing enough about his physical flawlessness. Yes, Marcus Almeida? Come on, let's go for a swim. Okay, I whispered. Pulling me from the counter, Marcus wrapped his arm around my shoulder, walking me outside into the wide grassy gardens beside an iridescent pool. He dropped his sweats and peeled the robe away from my body, and taking my hand in his, gently dragged me into the warm water. Chapter 52. The sun glistening over the deep blue ocean streamed through the large windows and melted through my eyelids. I rolled over and couldn't believe Marcus was still in bed next to me, asleep. I peered at the clock ticking on the bedside table. 11 a.m. Jeez. I lay back on the pillow and simply watched this flawless creature in his deep, peaceful sleep. Such a babe. I snuck out of bed to use the bathroom and delicately slipped back in, trying my best not to disturb him. But no luck. He slowly stirred, struggling to open his sleepy eyes. What time is it? He inhaled deeply, stretching his arms above his head, pulling me closer to him. 11. Jesus, he gasped. I can't believe I slept so long. It's about time you did, I smiled, turning over to gaze into his stunning, well-rested face. It is. I feel great. That's good, I smirked, wrapping my legs around his under the blankets. Maybe this is the start of some healthy habits. He pushed his groin into me, squeezing my body tightly. You're a healthy habit. So are you, I murmured, biting his chin. He pulled away and crawled out of bed. I got to check my phone. Oh, please don't, I pleaded, watching his fine naked ass walk out of the bedroom, only to moments later return with his phone in tow. Life just beautiful without it? Extremely beautiful, especially beside you, he smiled, throwing his muscular quads over my pelvis, thumbing through his missed calls quickly. All good, he sighed, finally throwing the phone in the quilt and again pulling me against his chest tightly. No doubt April's blown up his phone. No calls from April? I asked. 8, he muttered. Oh, fuck. The woman is riding his ass. Everyone still thinks you're in LA anyway, I said, running my fingers softly through his silky hair, glancing at the ceiling. That they do. So we have all day together. Marcus grabbed my jaw and planted his moist lips onto mine. We do. Eventually, we dragged ourselves out of bed and did nothing but laze around all morning. Well, at least I did. Marcus even offered me some of his finest clothes, sweats, and a white tea, and was even kinder to make us both some coffee with instant milk, courtesy of the endless empty shelves and skint fridges. By mid-morning, I had ditched those sweats and tea and lay my tanned nakedness on the deck chair by the pool. Marcus laying alongside, fastidiously watching me and my desirable curves as he spoke to various business wheelers and dealers on his phone. Yeah, Lim has confirmed, he said, his topless torso soaking up the sun with his cell phone constantly pressed against his ear. I carefully watched his eyes frolicking over my backside as I lay on my belly. No, offer is too low. He winked at me. We wait. He finally closed the phone and dropped it on the towel, and with suggestive eyes, got up without speaking and ran his fingers in between my butt cheeks, gradually piling his strappingly delicious body on top of mine. I could easily get used to this way of working, he muttered in my ear, his groin beginning to swell as he pushed it between my thighs. So, were these the extra office duties you had in mind for me? I asked with a cheeky smile. I was hoping so. He kissed my ear, rubbing himself up and down against me tenderly. You are the perfect assistant. I giggled as he buried his face into my neck. Are you happy? I whispered, listening to a group of gulls flying overhead. So happy, he whispered, kissing my warm face. Are you hungry? Yes, I laughed. I am. Chapter 53. Marcus called Lucky's in Montecito and ordered a smorgasbord of scrumptious food, steaks with a bunch of side dishes, arriving around mid-afternoon. And that was how it was. Me, Marcus, feeding our faces amongst the beautiful garden terraces, shaded by climbing wisteria, overlooking the ocean. How do you like your steak? I glanced at Marcus's face, sitting on his lap in my untied robe, putting the fork in his hungry mouth. Best steak I've ever had, he muttered through his mouthful. Better be, I muttered quietly with a smirk, cutting myself a piece and popping it into my mouth with some mashed potato. I lay back in those big burly arms and fed him for the next hour, in between bursts of laughter, passionate kissing, and several more of those damn business calls. After, we had a late afternoon dip in the pool and then sat on the wooden chair nestled along the beach cliffs, watching the sun sink drearily into the west, casting stunning shadows over the Channel Islands. Oh, I've had the best weekend, Marcus muttered with his arm wrapped around my shoulder. Me too, I smiled, snuggling up against him, the gentle sea breeze playing through our hair. Come on, time to go, he murmured in my ear. I glanced up into those dark eyes, the dying rays of the golden sun burning within them. I know your secrets, Marcus Almeida. He shot me a piercing glance. I know your secrets, Bonet de Haro, he whispered, embracing me tightly. He stood to his feet and held out his hand. So, just how are we going to do this? I wondered, slinking my hand into his, picturing April's more than ecstatic face, seeing the two of us rock up at the house together. I'll bring you home, and you wait in the car until I tell you otherwise. Oh, God, risky, Marcos, very risky. He knew by the look on my face that I was totally looking forward to this. Not. He laughed at me heartedly, as if he hadn't a care in the world. Lugging me into the house, we locked everything up and piled into the Bentley. Marcus revved the engine and glanced at me with a devilish grin. You ready? He winked at me. Totally, I mumbled, rolling my eyes with sarcasm as we drove through those big double gates. I suddenly had the revelation. So, if April doesn't know you have this house, I began carefully, then who cleans it? Marcos played with the volume dial on the dash. Lydia cleans it. I turned and glared at him. Lydia? I cried, astonished. Marcos smiled, turning the wheel of the car onto Marina Drive. Lydia has lots of secrets also, he answered, looking at me with a face full of amusement. She's been with me long before April was on the scene, he explained. Firstly, she's Spanish, so she can keep a secret. And two, I trust her loyalty to me. I immediately developed a deeper respect for Lydia. She always took care of Senor Almeida. And yes, her loyalty was explicitly clear. Marcus had given her and her family a good life. Just after dusk, the tires of the Bentley crunched over the gravel up through those Almeida gates, and both of us quickly noticed all the house lights on. April was definitely home. Turning off the engine, Marcus sat there, gently stroking my face, the black tint of the car windows as our only safe obscurity. Staring at me, as he often did, he finally leaned over and kissed me gently with those soft, supple Colombian lips. I love you, I whispered, glancing into his rested dark eyes, holding his jaw tenderly within my hands. It was such a relief to be able to tell him that. My lady, he muttered, taking my hand and kissing it. He then opened the door and climbed out the car. I patiently waited in the loneliness of that blacked-out Bentley, parked in between my G-Class and April's black Maserati. Waiting. Has he forgotten about me? Time was ticking. I peered outside in the looming darkness. Should I make a run for it? 10 minutes later, my gold iPhone buzzed. I looked down at the screen. Safe now. Looking over my shoulder at the house, I grabbed my shoddy takeout bag that held my raped dress, my Manolos and my diamonds, and scooted out the Bentley, scampering barefoot through the gardens and up to my quarters like a criminal. Perhaps I already am one. Relieved to finally be in the safety of my quarters, I had a quick shower, reluctantly rubbing off that Colombian deliciousness from my body, and slipped into some comfortable clothes, dabbing a little frankincense onto my wrists. The scent alone should be enough to deter any of April's suspicious thoughts.